Welcome to the GOTO Podcast. Each episode covers the brightest and boldest ideas from the world's leading experts in software development. Tune in for practical lessons, compelling theories, and plenty of inspiration. GOTO gathers the brightest minds in the software community to help developers tackle projects today, plan for tomorrow, and create a better future. Stay up to date with the latest in tech through GOTO's top-rated events in cities like Amsterdam, London, Copenhagen, and Chicago, and by subscribing to the GOTO Conference's YouTube channel, where you can find thousands more high-quality dev talks. Learn more at gotopia.tech.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GOTO Book Club. I'm Steve Pereira, your host for the session. I am joined by Fabrice Bernhard, who is the co-author of the Lean Tech Manifesto. Welcome, Fabrice. You want to say a little bit about yourself? Just introduce yourself to the audience.
Yes. So thank you so much for having me, Steve. And I'm so happy to be interviewed by you, the co-author of Flow Engineering. So my name is Fabrice Bernhard. I'm the co-founder of a company called Theodo. We're a tech consultancy. We want to be the value-driven tech consultancy. We're about 700 people now in London, in Paris, and in Casablanca. And so I'm also the co-author of the Lean Tech Manifesto, which is the book where we share our experience scaling from 0 to 700 people and $100 million revenue while trying to stay agile, and how we use lean and tech to do that.
Awesome. I think this is such a great topic. I'm really excited about this. Tell us first about the inspiration for the book. Like, what initially got this going? Like, what was the catalyst for writing the book?
Well, I think, the origin story is actually quite telling. So we were in our lean journey, so trying to understand this lean body of knowledge to apply it to our own organization. And part of that was actually traveling to Japan to visit Toyota factories. And so we were on one of these study trips, and they involve quite a lot of transport. So we're in this bus and we're having a discussion about agility. And Mike Ballet, who's this amazing global award-winning lean expert, is arguing that agile doesn't really work at scale. And I'm a passionate agilist. When we discovered agile, it really transformed our organization. So I'm trying to defend the fact that agile is amazing, and it's not like there's not some organizations that have grown super fast and are still innovating at incredible speeds. So they seem to have some form of agility despite being very big. And he takes the Agile Manifesto and tries to show me principle by principle. Look, these principles, they make sense in terms of capturing what makes an agile team great, but they don't really make sense if you had to lead hundreds or thousands of people. And unfortunately, I had to agree that this is true when you look at the original document. And my counter argument was, but if it's just a matter of wording, I'm pretty sure that, now that I've been on a lean journey for a long time, I can find you a different phrasing, which is true to the intention and would work at scale if you lead an organization of hundreds of thousands of people. So I worked hard overnight, probably because of jet lag, and came up with a few principles the next day. And that's when Michael said, well, then now you have to write the book around it. And so that's how it started.
I feel like you kind of jumped over a step that I'm really curious about. What was the catalyst for the lean journey with Theodo? Like what brought you to lean? It sounds like you had a lot of experience with agile, and then there was this inflection point where you're like, we need to go into this lean direction. We need to investigate lean. Yeah,
and indeed that's the step before that. And I think it's a journey that's probably going to resonate with a lot of people in the audience. So we work in tech, and we're doing it we're very young at the time, and we're doing it in a bit of an ad hoc way, believing we're agile, but not really, and really struggling. And then we have this amazing epiphany where I guess we have enough experience and we start reading enough books that we finally understand, what agility is about. And that's a complete transformation for us. And we really go from difficult working environment to an amazing working environment where we're producing more value, the customers are happy, the engineers are happy, so everybody's happy. And that led to the company scaling super fast. And so, of course, the question was, wow, this like Scrum, and extreme programming works amazingly well at telling us what to do as a team. But what do we do as multiple teams? What is the equivalent framework for how do I recruit? How do I sell? How do I finance my growth? So all these questions that you have as an entrepreneur or a company leader. And so we went back to the Agile community and said, guys, this Agile thing is amazing. What's the next step for us? And that's when we realized actually this was less clear, but we were very lucky to meet a guy who had gone through the same journey, had discovered Lean and told us the answer is Lean. Let me embark you on a Lean journey. And we were like, okay, well, let's try that. And he came to our company, and so the word we use in Lean to say that is like he came on the Gemba. So he came to the shop floor where things are happening. And in just a few questions, he completely rewired our brains. And we were like, wow, this is amazing. And so that's how we started a Lean journey, beginning of a 12 years journey, including study trips to Japan, to link it back to the first question.
Awesome. Well, I won't put you on the spot about those questions, but if you remember them, maybe we do a follow-up. And because I love these catalyst questions, those questions that just kind of like shift the way you're thinking so profoundly that you can't kind of unhear them, and they just kind of stick in your head. I've had similar experience myself with like almost tripping and falling into Lean by accident, right? And then everything is different and you see everything different. It's really remarkable. But let's talk about, we have this combination, right? Lean and Agile. We believe they're complementary. They seem to be very complementary. A lot of people think of them as separate. What do you think about in terms of the Venn overlap? Like, where do they overlap, and what does that look like for you?
All right, that's a very interesting question. So I think part of writing the book was really thinking, okay, we're going to build on top of the Agile Manifesto, stay true to its intention, and show that lean thinking is a way to scale that intention. So one answer would be that the Venn diagram is Agile is within Lean. And there are quite a few arguments in that favor, because when we looked into the influences of Agile, there's so much lean thinking. Scrum is inspired by HBR article called the New Product Development Game, which is written by Japanese professors studying Japanese innovation management techniques, which, links it back to Toyota, so links it back to Lean. And then also you look at the influences of Steve Jobs and Jeff Bezos, who are key players, of course, in the tech space. And they've both been, students of lean thinking. Mm-hmm. So that's one argument, which is lean thinking is just this like deeper, wider body of knowledge that shares the same purpose as Agile, and therefore Agile is inside. But there's also one thing we discovered while writing the book, which is, because Agile comes from tech, there is one that you can see something in the tech organizations. You can see a different way of organizing themselves as, networks of teams that we had never seen in the lean body of knowledge. And I think that's very much because, it only started becoming possible when work started becoming very digital. And it was inspired by, or it was made possible actually by experiences like the Linux, open source projects, where you have all these people working for free in a distributed manner. And therefore the question becomes, how do we manage to contribute all together, but without adding red tape, without having, management layers? And they came up with very different solutions to that problem. One of the outcome of that is Git today, and of course GitHub. And so what I'm saying here is there's a part of Agile that is outside of Lean, which is leveraging technology to enable topologies that are different, more modern, typically the network of teams topology.
Yeah, I think that's really, really interesting. And, it's funny how in manufacturing and traditional lean, it's like the networks are there, but the networks are a lot more intentional because they're physical. They have, supply and demand, physical inventory, transportation, logistics, all part of that network. And the tech network is this kind of nascent, emergent, ad hoc network that kind of comes together by virtue of like borrowing libraries and importing different modules from different things. And, we have these cases of like SSH being like at the cornerstone of the entire internet, and like no one's paying attention to the fact that like the network converges on this one point and it's super brittle and fragile. No one's investing in it. That's all really, really fascinating. And I think that's such a good point that, the network is there, and the degree to which you intentionally curate it and sort of manage it has a lot to do with your success, I think. That's really interesting to think about. While you're writing the book, while you're doing your research, what did you find that was like surprising or unexpected?
Well, I would say this aspect that we call tech-enabled networks of teams is really the thing that, we discovered while writing the book, while being stuck against this idea of when you look at Amazon, when you look at Linux, they managed to scale this kind of principle of individuals and interactions. And why? Because they're able to scale empowered teams. And how did you do that? And why does Theodo not really talk about it the same way? And so that for us was a discovery, and it's probably also why it's like it's the idea that is probably the less mature in the book in a sense, because it was discovered while writing the book. And it's interesting, and we're definitely not the only ones talking about it, but it's still, I think, a nascent idea in the world of management. There's this amazing book called Team of Teams by General McChrystal that clearly is, for me, one of the first big references to that. And I've seen some articles in HBR talking about these like network of teams or network of competences. So hopefully we've touched an idea that's going to be big in the next decades.
Yeah, I think so. I think this, this commonality that we see kind of manifested in all these different contexts is really interesting. Like, I know that we shouldn't get carried away seeing patterns everywhere or the same sort of thing in different contexts, but it does seem that there's something to that networking, that I find really, really interesting, like the dynamics of networks, the technology of networks, what allows networks to work in digital contexts, even in social contexts, right? Like all of these things are interconnected in what we're talking about.
And clearly there's a huge desire just to kind of like, reinforce that. I mean, I think the success of Team Topologies, the book, shows that people are very interested in, the different ways of organizing teams, or the success of Web3 and DAOs, so these ideas of distributed organizations. And I think there's an appetite. There's not a very good understanding yet of how to make them work, but
I agree. I mean, we also have a lot of focus on the structure of teams, the definition of teams, kind of like the boxes. Mm-hmm. And what I see changing over time is this shift towards focus on the lines between the boxes, right? The interactions, like the dynamics of the system rather than the structure of the system. That's really interesting to see, because I think that's where the magic happens, right? It's very easy to draw a bunch of boxes. It's very easy to kind of define architecture, but architecture is valuable based on what it does, what it's able to enable. Not to pull us in crazy divergent directions. Let's bring it back to lean and agile for a moment. How do you see them evolving? Like over your experience, you've seen, you started in agile and then kind of shifted your awareness into lean and seeing the bigger picture there and the interplay between those two. How do you see that dynamic, that relationship evolving over time? Do you see it converging? Do you see it diverging? Do you see it changing in different ways?
I I mean, I think it's very interesting to look at the big trends because we all kind of, are subject to them and influenced by them. And I really loved, Agile, and I love the Agile community. I think it's going through a rough patch today. I think this is the outcome of, many good years with, money was easy, investments was easy in tech. And therefore, Agile became more and more focused on the people part, but at the expense, sometimes too often, at the expense of outcomes. And that means that nowadays that, the market is less easy. Investors are not investing so easily. Leaders are starting to challenge Agile initiatives. And if they don't see the outcomes, they tend to stop them. So that's clearly one kind of big trend I've seen. And that's one side of the story. And the other side of the story is that Lean is this huge body of knowledge that transformed manufacturing in the 90s that then got probably overused by consultants in ways that were very rough. And there's a lot of people who associate the word Lean to horrible, brutal transformation where it's all about squeezing optimizations from processes at the expense of humans. So I would say the complete opposite of Agile in a sense. Mm-hmm. But but there's a bounce back now where people are realizing, whoa, that was a very simplistic interpretation of that body of knowledge. When you go back to the sources, you realize there's such an importance of respect for people, investing in the human capital of an organization, developing people to build better products. And so I think this is where they're converging. I think people who love Agile for what it enables in an organization and what it enables in terms of working environment, but realize they need to be stronger on the outcomes. They're converging with the Lean community was like, we're getting great outcomes, but, some people didn't realize that if they want the outcomes to be sustainable, it needs to be done by investing in people. So my gut feeling here is that the Lean body of knowledge is bringing probably answers to the people who want to strengthen their Agile initiatives.
Right. Yeah, kind of like a supportive backbone to a lot of those things that work at the team level, at the individual level, to give it more visibility, breadth, depth, and hopefully focus on outcomes, maybe business and ultimately, customer value at this larger scale of impact. You mentioned briefly, kind of the pendulum swing where folks get excited about Lean and that can drive to this extreme focus on one end, swing the pendulum too far and having it, necessarily kind of swing back. What kind of misconceptions have you learned about in both the Lean and Agile space? Are they the same? Do they have unique kind of common misconceptions that you've tried to capture or stay aware of as you've continued your journey?
Yeah, I think, and I'm probably repeating some of, what we already mentioned about the trends, because I guess, of course, the pendulum is happening because misconceptions are being contradicted by reality in a sense. But yeah, so one big misconception I've seen in Agile is it's only about the people and it's a lot about the feelings, which is, yes, it's true. It's extremely strongly about people and how, and their motivations and their morale, but it's also about competence and it's also about outcomes. And as soon as in Agile, you start losing track of outcomes and competence, then that's not going to be very sustainable. And on the Lean side, I did mention that there's been this huge, I think, consultant-led push of Lean to optimize process. And so that's created a huge and, still today, misconception around Lean is this bad thing to squeeze more out of people. And we face that so many times when we arrive at clients and we say, we're going to work in an agile and lean way. And, I remember very well one emotional reaction of one manager saying, it's already hard enough. I don't want you to squeeze us even more. I don't like this approach. And we were so unaware of the misconceptions. We were like, what do you mean? Like, if anything, the way we work is more sustainable, is healthier. We acknowledge problems instead of, working hard at night to hide them. And this same person, I think 1 year later, said, you gave me faith and work again. And that was very inspiring. So that's, I think, it's a big misconception of lean. I think it's also very much another big misconception of lean. And that one, I think it's important to mention, especially in the GOTO community. It's just about manufacturing. It's just about well-oiled processes. And therefore, when you're being creative, when you're in engineering, when you're, at design stages, lean is unhelpful. And that, I think, is a big misconception for two main reasons. The first one is that if you visit a factory, you realize it's not well-oiled at all, unless you have a very creative, continuous problem-solving approach to the continuously new and innovative challenges that reality throws at you. There's so many ways things can go wrong. And basically in manufacturing, I think it's where they've scaled the amount of new problems they can get every day to really amazing levels. So that's the first misconception, I think, is really believing that manufacturing is easy and we're doing engineering, so it's different. But I think the second one is also lean, in the sense I use it, is very much a study of the success of Toyota. And the secret of Toyota is lean engineering. Mm-hmm. It's not lean manufacturing. Their secret is how they leverage the amazing ways of working in manufacturing to inform their design and engineering processes, to inform their strategy, to end up today being the biggest car maker in the world, with the biggest profitability levels, with the highest reliability statistics. That's very interesting. This is not about manufacturing. This is about their engineering. And therefore, when in tech we study lean, of course, we're most interested in these lean engineering aspects.
Right. And I think you'd also be hard pressed to find a more people-oriented environment as well, right? I mean, it's not process and technology over everything. It's people over everything, which is not what people would expect.
Yeah, that's clearly, I mean, I was mentioning the lean manufacturing because it's a misconception I've seen in the tech community. And yeah, and the overall misconception is that it's all about people, and it's, they've got so many principles, but, some of them are respect for people, mm-hmm. which is really one of the key pillars at Toyota, the key pillar of lean thinking. Another one is good thinking, good products. So really aligning the idea that if you want to have better products, it's not going to come from process, it's going to come from better thinking. How do you get better thinking? By investing in, by investing in people, by investing in their training and deep understanding of where the issues are. So it's all about the people, yes.
Yeah. And the other one that comes to mind for me is the automation with a human touch, right? It's not automation for the sake of automation. It's automation in service of people, in collaboration with people. And I think that often gets forgotten as well. So talking about people, did you learn anything that you can share about leadership and the cultural aspect of lean and agile and lean and tech specifically?
Yeah, I mean, most of the learnings are in the book, and I love how really one of the key leadership learnings through my lean journey was that there's so much conflicts in an organization that you can solve in such a constructive way if you agree on the problem and start looking at it in a more scientific way, which is what creating a lean culture is so much about. One thing I learned kind of after writing the book, because part of the writing happened during the COVID crisis. And so one thing I've learned, probably not strongly enough, worded strongly enough in the book, is that visual management is such an amazing enabler to this lean culture. And so clearly the COVID culture, which means we started working remotely, fully remote first during lockdown, and then, hybrid, means that we've done that, but I've seen that across so many organizations. We've kind of stopped putting stuff on the walls. Why would you do that if you're only in the office like 2 or 3 days a week? But that has had, I would say, a negative impact on sustaining that kind of scientific culture, because I think visual management is such a great tool, a great self-management tool. And so that's one learning, that is more recent than, what you can find in the book.
Awesome. If you had to kind of take the book and boil it down into one message that you wanted to deliver to leaders, or one thing that they could change, one thing they could do differently, what would that be? What would the one thing that you want to communicate with this book be?
Well, it depends where in the journey the people are, but I think, because often what people ask is, where do I start? And so I can share where we started, where I started, which is the lean coach brought us to the shop floor, so to the Gemba. We went to where a team was working, and we looked at their project board where they had put all the indicators of, project health and what they were trying to achieve, etc. And he said, where's the customer satisfaction on that board? So can I see the kind of like, almost real time measure of the value that you're bringing to your customers, which, was incredible. So really, and then he told us to coach the team on problem solving if that satisfaction was too low. So in short, if I had to summarize all this, is go to the shop floor, go where the teams are working, and coach them on problem solving their issues.
Beautiful. And then we're running short on time, so hopefully we can fit this in. But can you share kind of an example, maybe a case from the book where you've had lean or agile practices that actually significantly contributed to a transformation?
Yeah, so in the book, we illustrate every idea with like examples, but I wanted to show that these ideas were quite universal. So a lot of the examples are from other organizations. One example, which is really, an experience we had firsthand, is, and it's also linked to COVID. So when COVID started and the lockdown was announced, there was this need to create a digital platform to allow businesses across the country to get state guaranteed loans. And so of course the delay was like incredibly short. We had 5 days to build the platform. We were lucky enough to be selected to build it. And, we worked super hard, super agile, but agile in the sense of, all coming together, working super hard. And in 4.5 days, the platform was released. So that was an amazing feat. And what was interesting in terms of the next steps is, of course, this success led to so many more projects in the same kind of context. And so quite quickly, we grew to 300 people as a tech organization. And, the 5 days it took us to build the whole platform, deliver it at scale was, there were some cyber attacks, etc., in a way that was like, protected from DDoS attacks. All of a sudden, the 5 days was the time it took just to go from git push to production. And so that was very frustrating, but that I think we've all gone through this, what happens when you scale. And what was amazing is that's where we could use all our lean tech knowledge to start problem solving these big scaling issues. And I would give three examples, very quick, but one is, implementing a real Kanban. So Kanban where you really see the handovers between different teams, and you can see where the bottlenecks are. You can see the lead time of each increment of work. And that really helped us immediately see where the bottleneck was. So that's a very powerful tool. This allowed us to also work a lot on, modularizing the architecture. So something you will, of course, see also like, being pushed by people in continuous deployment and stuff like that. So automated testing, more modular architecture, which meant that we went back to 40 deployments in production per day. That was really without, increasing quality issues. So that I think was really a great thing. And another thing we did, and it's really this, what we call dantotsu. So this systematic analysis of bugs. And that also had like amazing effects because of course, once you start scaling, you start having quite a few bugs in production. If you've not paid attention enough. And we managed through this like systematic daily analysis of defects to, divide it by a factor of 7.
Awesome. So what I'm gonna bring us home. I'm going to basically highlight a couple of things that stood out to me because I think they're awesome takeaways for the audience, for anyone following along. I heard, visual management being absolutely critical. I heard going to the Gemba and seeing the work happening is so important. And then this aspect of problem solving and really instilling a capability of finding and solving problems. And all of this being, extremely human, right? All focused around how do we enable humans with visual management, seeing their conditions of work, what's working, what's not working by going to the Gemba, and then helping them solve their own problems and solve problems for the organization. So I think that's really awesome. Anything that you would say to finish us off and before we have to go?
You've made such an amazing summary that I don't really want to touch it. It's perfect. No, and I would just say that you've used the word human a lot, and we put the Japanese or Chinese character for human on the cover of the book because clearly I think that's what Lean brings to our organizations, and that's why I'm spreading it because I believe it in it's contributing to a better world.
Awesome, I believe it too. That teased me up perfectly. We couldn't have planned this better, but it teased me up perfectly to show the book. So the book is the Lean Tech Manifesto. I assume you can find it everywhere. Fabrice, where can we find you? Where can we find out more? Where can folks reach out to you?
I mean, look, the place where I'm posting at the moment is LinkedIn. So you can definitely connect and follow me on LinkedIn. And we're starting a few initiatives in around, trying to gather the community online. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see in which spaces we get together.
Beautiful. All right, Fabrice, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. We'll see you on LinkedIn and elsewhere as you try to spread these ideas of lean and tech working together.
Amazing. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the GOTO podcast. Head over to gotopia.tech to discover lots more content from the brightest minds in software development.